So let me quickly introduce our panelists. Hold your applause, please, till the end, and bakers, come on up. Avery Ruzicka is the founder and head baker of Manresa Bread in the Bay Area. Nicole Esatola is the chef owner of the Canteen Bakery and Cafe in San Francisco, and also the author of the baking book, Scandinavian from Scratch. Michelle Hernandez is the pastry chef and owner of Le Dix-Sept Patisserie in San Francisco. Karen Mitchell is the proprietor of Model Bakery, one of Napa Valley's most beloved spots. And Rory Candell is the owner of Rory's Bakehouse, a local bakery specializing in frozen nostalgic treats, which basically have my name all over them. Okay. Thank you very much for remembering that I had told you to save your applause, because I forgot, of course. All right, I'm looking at my watch. Okay, here we go. Everybody ready? So, first, welcome, guys. I was hoping that each of you could tell us about a moment from your past that revealed you were meant to be a baker or pastry chef one day. So we're going to do a speed round version of this, which means we're going to answer it quickly. Thank you. Avery?
So in 2011, I moved to California to work at Manresa Restaurant, with aspiring to work my way up the line, and I ended up helping with the bread. And after a little while, they asked me, would you like to move up the line or make the bread? And I realized that if I came to work every day and someone else was making the bread, it was like kind of like a heartbreak. And I realized at that moment that this was what I was supposed to be doing. So
I love that a heartbreak inspired the move. Sometimes heartbreaks are good.
I would say my moment was opening up Canteen about 6.5 years ago and realizing that you can't run a restaurant that does breakfast, lunch, and brunch without having a good pastry selection. So really having to dig deep and have a good selection and doing everything from scratch. So
I think some people have heard this, but when I was 5, I got an Easy Bake Oven, and that kind of secured it. That and all watching PBS baking shows when I was young. Had to do it.
Easy Bake Ovens for the win. Yeah. Sorry.
About 40 years ago, exactly, next month, I had a chance to get the Model Bakery in St. Helena, and it's the only bakery in town. I didn't even know how to turn on the brick ovens. We had to figure it out the hard way. But just the chance to work in that bakery, and we had run a catering business before, working with the wineries in the Napa Valley, and the bakery became available, and I said, why not? I'm going to do it. So 40 years later, I'm still there. Woo!
I would say, and some people do know this, that I had a really hard childhood in middle school in terms of like people making fun of me. And I struggled with that a lot. And my escape was baking. And I would call my mom from a payphone, because I'm old enough that there were payphones at school, and make her take butter out for me so I could come home and bake cookies. And it's always been my escape, and it still is.
Oh my God, I love the connection between softening butter and payphones, because I too am old enough to remember a payphone. So you all run successful bakeries and are at the top of your games. What is like a pep talk or some advice you wish someone would have given you early in your careers? Or it can be a piece of advice you would have given yourself. It doesn't have to be someone else.
I think just to go easy on yourself. I mean, that sounds much easier said than done, but realizing sometimes when things are so hard, you're not doing anything wrong, you're doing too much. And I think that's something I still kind of have to grapple with, like that maybe I need to take some things off my plate. But I think people did try to give me that advice. I just thought that I could do it all. And so I think just, be maybe prioritizing a little bit more and being a little gentler with yourself.
I'd right in line with you, Avery. I think just keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate things, and just try and be clear about what you want to accomplish without being too hard on yourself. Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't read the comments.
Completely.
I think that, people say like you have to take if you're going to believe the beautiful praise, you should also believe, the more negative things. But the social media and everything can be harsh, and I think we're bakers, and I feel like as long as it's directed at the product, I think that's fine. I think it can be challenging when it's other things. But I did this with somebody today. Stevie. When people are really reactive and super generous with their feedback to me, today it was Stevie with the cake that she ate that we served here. I'm like, can I just stop and take a video of this so that I can really remember if I'm having a bad day of how I made someone feel.
Right. Well, I think one of the best things that happened to us, I run the bakery with my daughter, Sarah, and we're partners. We work in two different sites to preserve our relationship. But the best thing that happened to us was meeting Oprah, and we make English muffins that people are really happy with, and we make 4,000 or 5,000 a day. But Oprah tasted them. She was at wine auction in the Napa Valley. It must have been 15 years ago, and she said, "It's the best thing I ever ate," and she promoted it on her special Christmas list for 3 different years. So that was kind of our golden moment in life, and since then it hasn't stopped.
Mm-hmm. I would say to really just hone in on your focus and your goal and not let any negative talk get in the way of that. I've really forced myself every day to envision my goals and to walk and visualize it. A year ago, I talked to my friend about being at Jubilee in New York and how far away it felt, and I'm sitting here now, and I visualized that. And everything that's happened for me this year, I've seen in my mind. And it is happening, and it's not happening in the way I saw it, but it is happening in a way that I know is what I envisioned. So I just really am a believer in seeing what you want and believing that you're already there, because I'm living proof that it works.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I mean, I asked you not to applaud in the beginning, and now you applaud all the time. I love that. I don't want you to listen, so I love that. I just wanted to add mine, just because I was thinking of it, which mine is try not to worry about things you can't control. Because I feel like we all have stuff in our heads all the time that get in the way of progress and movement forward, and trying to get rid of that, I think is helpful. I'd love to know how you guys stay inspired. I mean, how do you keep your creative batteries charged, and where do you find inspiration for creating baked goods or coming up with ideas for the business?
I think the thing that I loved about baking when I first started was that you did the same thing every day. You were making the same product every day, and every day you had an opportunity to make it a little bit better. And I feel like that actually, if I rewind my brain a little bit and remember that piece, I bring that to my bakery as a whole, not just to a product, but that every day, you can start again. And that can be easier said than done, but that is, if you keep it simple and you just remember, I'm trying to make it a little bit better today, I find that very inspiring and motivating. And it could be anything. It could be that you tried to make your bread a little bit better, or that you tried to make the employee experience a little bit better, but just a little bit better, 1% better, is something. So I think that is what keeps me going, because it's a small focus and you can have a small victory, and that keeps you kind of energized.
And when it's a baked good, is it also about adding, I'm going to try a new flavor, or I'm going to just...
I think really for me right now, personally, it's about technique. I have a lot of employees, and not a lot of my team members necessarily came from a culinary background, and they're incredible team members, but trying to find ways to focus in a small thing. So checking in about the way that somebody's scoring bread, or the way that they're assessing the fermentation of something, just something small like that right now.
Nicole?
I would say the best advice is, or the place where I get inspiration is from stepping away from my day-to-day and finding that balance. That I feel like when I'm able to step away, I have so many so many different thoughts than the fires that I normally put out at my workplace. So it's really nice to try and strive always to maintain that balance. I come from a fine dining background where all the small details needed to be in place. And there I thought it was really hard to find an inspiration. And, now if I'm able to even take a hike, I can be inspired by the visuals of the greenery flora while I'm out walking or something like that. So that's where I get inspiration from, is just getting some fresh air.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like the quiet. It's like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I definitely agree because I'll speak for myself. Like being in the industry, a lot of times you're in the basement. They put pastry in the basement. You're not with windows, all of those things. So like my day off is on Monday. And so in the morning, I just kind of like give myself a couple hours to just like relax from the week and just let my mind kind of go. And I'll write things down of like, what was just maybe things that happened, things that they just kind of like come to mind. It's something that also happens when you're walking. I took a walk yesterday. I had a lot of things to do. And I was like, I think I just need to go outside and get some fresh air and take a walk to just not to be by myself. I need to be by myself to be not necessarily to be inspired. I can be inspired when I talk to people, but when I'm like actually generating ideas, I need to work it through by myself. So either writing or walking.
I feel like people say like if you're a little more introverted, sometimes you get your energy and your creativity from being by yourself. And so if you're a little more extroverted, you get it from other people. I feel like I'm both. Maybe you are too.
Yeah.
Maybe we all are.
Yeah.
Karen?
Well, I think one of my pleasures and something I've done all my life is to travel. And at one point, my husband and I went to Europe. We were just out of graduate school, and it was the early 70s, and we bought a brand new Volkswagen bus. And yes, we lived in it for 2 years and went all over Europe and North Africa. We even drove across Russia, Scandinavia, and I've been to Paris 25 times, I think. My favorite place in the world. And I've always been inspired by what I see and taste and eat and find in different parts of the world. And when I came back to California in the mid-70s, I realized the bread was horrible. And I was so hooked on European, especially French baking, that I wanted to do it here. And that's been my inspiration. And I've been able to train some really talented bakers and bring them in, and the company grows. One of our difficulties really is having several locations. We've got 5 now, and it's to keep the consistency in each place, because everybody that comes in wants to do it their way or change a recipe, or they don't think that what they're given is going to work, and they sneak it in, and you're never sure what's going to happen. So it's a matter of control at this point, and making sure that everything in each store is the same, and we don't disappoint our customers. But I love baking, and I love working in the business, and I'm so happy to be able to still do it. I've been at it for over 40 years, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, that's my inspiration.
My inspiration really goes back to my mom. I come from a food family. My grandfather and my great-grandfather owned restaurants in New York City. I've always been, like a restaurant person with my family, I would say. My mom is an avid cookbook collector. She has a cookbook nook in her house. And although she lives on the East Coast, when I go home, I'm always sitting in that nook looking back at cookbooks that I would be buried in when I was 10 years old. I also love to eat. I think about food when I go to sleep at night and when I wake up in the morning. And the first thing that my partner and I talk about is what we're going to have for dinner at night. So I'm just really, I'm a very anxious person, and working with my hands and just being in a kitchen is very calming and soothing for me. So my inspiration is just that I'm always hungry. So, that leads to lots of new ideas.
Also, can we all have a cookbook nook? I want a nook. I mean, I have a shelf, but I think I need a nook, right? That sounds so cozy. So during yesterday's talks, I was inspired both by Chef Tanya Holland and winemaker Robin McBride when they talked about making hard decisions. I know not all of you were here, but they were talking about hard decisions, and sometimes those decisions being made for us, in other words, disappointments. Can you give us an example of a hard decision you had to make or that you didn't have a choice in and how you handled it? Avery?
Yeah, I think that goes back to COVID. I think for me, I closed the bakery for 2 weeks completely, and like retail stores and my production space, and then I went back to work with 4 people in my production space. And I've always tried to lead the business. Like I started the business kind of working with people who had been my friends at Manresa, so finding that balance of like, am I the boss? Am I your friend? And there were some really hard decisions that had to be made about like who could come back, when they could come back, how we would organize people. And there were a lot of feelings there. And I, was trying to lead sort of like with people. And I realized I had to just be the leader. I had to make hard decisions, and I had to be okay that maybe not everybody who I valued, was going to be okay with that decision. And that was really, it was a big growing moment because it was hard to handle other people's emotions, and I especially male emotions actually. And so it was a big moment. And yeah, it was like, actually guys, I am the boss, so I am going to make the decision. So it really was just about setting boundaries in the end, but having to stand by those boundaries and live with other people's disappointment and feelings and not back down. Yeah.
So hard if you're even a teeny bit of a people pleaser, like so hard.
I would say mine is also related to COVID. We were very ambitious when we first opened Canteen, and it was basically, I remember in the beginning pitching the idea for Canteen to my sous chef that we had been open for, a few weeks, and she said, "So what you're trying to do is like a bakery and a restaurant under the same roof." And it was kind of like, she's like, it's kind of like 2 businesses at once. Because it was really, all encompassing, also having the bakery, which I hadn't anticipated from the beginning. So around COVID time, we saw pastries and bakery, and we were all spoiling ourselves at that time. Everything was just booming. We were able to, make a lot of headway. There was also no dine-in. So it was an easy thing for people to have either pick up or have delivered. So I made the decision to go more towards the bakery concept, and kind of diminish the savory food menu. And that was coming from a purely food background, that was a hard decision to make. I felt like I was really making a new direction. And I remember calling the staff over and telling them that I had a big, announcement to make and everything. And I told them about what my plans were. And also kind of just strange having to make a change like that, but keep it under wraps. And when I told them, they all seemed, "Oh, well, that's fine. That's totally fine. We understand." And they had all been afraid that I was going to fire them and close the joint. So they were like, "Oh yeah, fine. We have to do more bakery. No problem." So yeah.
For me, I think it was the decision to actually go into pastry and not continue my savory restaurant career, which, I'm still in the restaurant industry. So if you're not, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is there's a dividing line. You're either, especially in France, you're either in or you're out. And even within pastry, you're either pastry or you're a boulanger. You're either a bread baker or you're pastry. And specializing, it's like very specific. And when I did my school in France, and my intention was, I'm going to do a dual diploma. I'm going to do pastry and savory because I want to learn both. I'm already going there, making a big investment. I'm going to do both. When I got there, I ended up doing really well in savory, and everybody in my class who was doing pastry was like phenomenal. I was in a very I was like, well, I think I'm actually I graduated at the top of my class in savory, and I'm like, pastry there was just so many better people in pastry than me. And so I was like, I don't know. And then in practice, I think I just needed more practice. I was like, okay, I like the discipline of pastry. I like how precise it is. I like just, I mean, if you're a pastry person, you're a pastry person, right? And Savory's like throwing stuff and can like put things together at the last minute. If you do pastry and you haven't like dialed it in the day before, it's not going to happen on the second day. I mean, you can do something to save it, but I like that almost rigidity of it, and the preciseness of it. And so when I came back to, well, actually I had to make the decision in France, but when I came back to the States, I was like, okay, maybe I'll get a restaurant job. Maybe I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I was like, I really think I've done my time on the line. I don't want to live like that. I want to live like pastry. And that was just, I think just, I love being on a line, on a hotline, on Savory, and I'll do it for like pop-ups and things. But that's like not a life for me. And that's just, it's still a very challenging thing. Like, I feel like, oh, everyone's like, you should start a restaurant. And I'm like, for so many reasons, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But I think that is still something I like struggle with a little bit, because I love Savory, but pastry is the way to go for the win. Karen?
Well, when we started out with the model bakery, we concentrated on retail, and we were in St. Helena. We were the only bakery in town, so we had kind of a golden audience. We could we could control the whole scenario, and we stayed that way for about doing just retail and concentrating on our store for maybe almost 20 years, and then around 2003, my daughter came to work with us, and she said, "Mom, we're going to do wholesale." And I said, "Oh God, no, we can't do that. That's delivering." And she was determined to do it, and I resisted for a while, but she put a package together and developed it and started servicing the restaurants and wineries, especially in the Valley. And then about 5 years later, we decided that we would do a store down at the Oxbow Public Market, which at first I resisted, and I said, no, that's too much. I don't want to do it. And but she organized it, and it was successful, and it's just gone on from there. So, it was trying to learn new ideas and accept change was difficult for me, but it's what happens with businesses when they grow. And next week, we're opening a new store in Walnut Creek.
Awesome.
And that's very exciting, and it's going to be focusing more on the restaurant side of the business. And once again, I said, no, I can't do that. So I'm staying in St. Helena, and she's going to Walnut Creek, and we're going to be happy.
Rory? So my difficult thing happened to me this year. I mean, every part of having a business is difficult. I started this from my house during COVID. I was always a baker. I went to school to bake. I am from New York, but I wound up in Napa, and I waited tables at Bouchon forever, and I sold wine at Farniente, and I was raising 2 kids and always missing baking. So during COVID, I was like, I need to do something. So I started making cookies out of my house and basically started just hawking them on Facebook and Instagram to my friends. And one thing led to another, and my business grew into a frozen business. Everything I make is frozen and meant to be baked by my customers, which has been incredible because I'm sharing just the joy of baking with people. They're getting the smell and the experience, not just the final product. And it was really trucking along. I wound up last year in my own commissary kitchen that I run, which was a long way from my home kitchen after working out of 2 other kitchens. I'd been having some health issues and not feeling 100%, but not knowing what was wrong with me. In December of last year, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And it's been, I'm not going to cry, it's been a really challenging year for me, physically, mentally, emotionally. And a lot of people thought I was going to close my business. But this is my dream and my life. I put everything I have into what I'm doing now. And I just made a decision in the moment of I'm going to see my way through this. It has been a learning experience of like taking things off my plate and how am I going to narrow my focus and what are my goals, I feel the enormous weight of time on my shoulders now of like, I'm probably not going to be able to walk always. There are times I can't walk. I am still doing almost all the work myself. I work 5 days a week doing production. I love it. It is my escape, my everything. I've been very open about my diagnosis because people are usually embarrassed and a lot of people don't share. I did share with the Chronicle and got a huge write-up, and it's been probably part of the reason I'm here. It's been awesome. I want to be vocal for people who don't feel comfortable talking about their diagnosis, because this is a very challenging disease to have, and I have a very challenging job with it. But it has also inspired me to say everyone is met with challenges in their life. They can be, something with your health, they can be something with your family, and how do you look at that and re-envision your future still doing what you love? And that's really, this year has been totally life-changing for me as something I never saw coming, had no idea about. I've learned so much, I've met so many people, and I've really felt the love of this community, my friends, and people I don't even know. And so my biggest challenge has also been, honestly, my biggest gift, because I have a totally different view on life now and how to be grateful every single day for what I am doing. So, it's just all in how you look at the challenge, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Rory. And yesterday, Dominique talked about her breast cancer diagnosis and the importance of sharing things that are scary and using your platform, or whether you have a platform or not. But I so believe
Sorry for being emotional.
Oh, no.
It will never not be emotional.
No. We love emotion. Hello. Cherry bomb. Hello. But I just think it's great to to take off all of the judgment about people being sick or having something wrong with them. And
I didn't choose it.
Yeah, and it's being human.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. I just have one final question that we have to kind of not speed round exactly, but this is my question. So which of the baked goods in your pastry case most fully encompasses you and your bakery's ethos? So basically, if you were one of your baked goods, which one would it be?
I think it would be my Kunaman. I feel like the dough itself, like the way we approach the dough, the way that the choices we make or I made, and the inspiration behind it are all very indicative of how I want to bake. We make a specific dough for Kunaman. It doesn't have sugar in it compared to our croissant dough and our other doughs, and all the sugar is laminated into it, and that's a choice. It would be easier just to use our croissant dough and have one less mix of, but it would be too sweet, and I don't want things to be. I like sugar, but I consider myself a bread baker first. I'm definitely not a pastry chef. I'm a baker. I would be in that boulangerie category, and maybe more than a patisserie. And so the balance of flavor and then the texture. Kunaman has a lot of different kinds of textures. You have the caramelization on the outside, you have the flaky layers, and then you have kind of this gooey, buttery center. And I think that's what I'm looking for when I want to bake. I want things to be intentional and be interesting in the sense that there's contrast. And so I think Kunaman for me.
Also, when I interviewed Avery on my podcast, we talked about Queenaman or Kunaman. So if you want to hear all about the pastry that Avery is, give that episode a listen.
So we bake both pastries and cookies, but we also do traditional Danish rye bread, or a twist on it, a sprouted rye bread. It's a dark, seedy bread that I absolutely love. It's very versatile. It can have both savory or sweet toppings added to it. That's my surefire answer.
I love that.
Quick pipe.
We're known for our canne, which is really crispy and very dark bake. We do really dark bakes at Le Dix-Sept, and it's just got this nice crunch, and it's got that soft custardy inside, kind of like a web-like structure, and I think that's definitely me. I'm hard on the outside and soft on the inside.
Also, my
And brown.
on the podcast with Michelle is cannelé. So you can learn all about what she's really like on the podcast.
Well, I'd probably have to say our English muffins. And it's kind of a silly story. We were playing around with ciabatta dough one baking night, and we had extra, and one of the bakers said, "Let's try making a roll with it." And I said, "No, let's try making an English muffin." And it was, ciabatta dough is very sticky and spreads, and I said, "Well, there's no way to keep it whole." And my idea was to we found some tuna fish cans, and we cut the top and the bottom off of them and washed them and used them as a ring mold and proofed the English muffins in that way. And then we put cornmeal on the bottom to keep it from sticking to the tray. And then we used clarified butter, and we had old cast iron skillets that we melted the butter in. And there's, no way that you go wrong with too much butter.
No.
So when people ask me how many calories are in an English muffin, I say, well, there's no way to tell because the muffins are not baked in the oven. They're only cooked in the clarified butter. And the process they have now for doing them in mass is phenomenal. We have a reel that plays at the bakeries, and you can go in and watch them make it. They go in one end of a huge, long griddle filled probably 8 or 10 inches deep with clarified butter, and they just float down this butter, and they have these long chopsticks that they turn them with, and so they go for 1 or 2 minutes on the first side. They get flipped, and by the time they're at the end of the run, they take a tray, a wire rack tray, and lift them all up, drain some of the butter off, and then it goes onto a rack. You can imagine that process going on, and I think I'm happily an English muffin.
Yeah. I would say our raspberry passion fruit scone because I make laminated scones, so there's a lot of layers and there's sweet raspberries in there, and I think that everybody, my persona is very sweet, but I would say I'm tart like passion fruit as well. So I think I'm a really good contrast of those things, and that's one of our most popular scones, and the one I see myself as the most.
And you're full of many layers.
Many layers.
Well, thank you so much to my panelists and to all the bakers who joined us this morning. Thank you again to Kerrygold and California Prunes for all of their support. And please welcome Carrie Diamond to the stage.